Happy Canadian Thanksgiving. You are listening to the Sunday Spectacular, the Leafs Convo, presented by Oakridge Ford in London, Ontario, oakridgeford.com. 0% financing is going on right now. A winter tire package, free televisions. Message me in the community section or get at me on Twitter for more details. I am Norman James, the host of this podcast, joined as always by the wonderful, the legend, the mighty, Michael Piagello in Cheektowaga, New York. Mr. A, the Maple Leafs, a 5-2 winner in Detroit, 3-2-1 on the season. Got the win in the Motor City.
Good morning, Norm. It was a much needed victory, a much needed good performance, but a little strange because I think going into the season, everybody thought, okay, you're paying Austin Matthews 11.6, Tavares 11. Marner nearly 11. You've re-signed Nylander, Kapanen, and Janssen. You've locked up all these guys. And last night, the victory was completely the third and fourth line. And I think Tavares was the only one of the core top or the top six forwards that got any points. Now that's good because you need, depth of contribution and depth of scoring. But, the concern about the performance against Tampa was that the top six really didn't do anything, and they really didn't do much last night, but they got a good effort from that third line of Mikheyev, Kerfoot, and Moore. The fourth line unit of Timashov, Shore, and Gauthier was great. And on the strength of those two lines, they get a much-needed victory at the Little Caesars Palace.
Isn't that what you want in games like this, even if you are playing really well? You have your depth players do the work. Not to say that the Stars are getting the night off by any means. This is a nice little bounce-back game from my perspective, and I think most perspectives.
Well, I mean, don't get me wrong. It's a much-needed victory. I mean, after the stinker, I said on Thursday, I said that it was in preparation for Canadian Thanksgiving. Which, by the way, I'm always jealous that you get to have turkey and stuffing before I do. But that they laid it. That it was a turkey on Thursday against Tampa. It was a terrible performance, and I thought that okay, you're going to get Matthews and Nylander and Marner stepping up and going crazy against Detroit, and really there was not a lot of energy from those lines, but a lot of good effort from that third line and that fourth line were the keys to the victory.
Fans love when their favorite player lights it up at any time, especially against crappy teams. I want to see the big stars rise to the occasion when they have to. They didn't do it against Tampa. This is where you want your support players to have this opportunity to rise to the fore, and they certainly did that. Ilya Mikheyev, he's continuing to develop right before our eyes. I'm not saying he's going to turn into anything special, but he scored a nice goal, some nice hustle, zipping around Jimmy Howard there and popping it into an empty net. I like to see that. And Demetriou Timashov with a couple of helpers.
Yeah, I mean, as opposed to some of the players that the Leafs have brought over from the KHL that they expected, or from Europe, that they expected to be contributors. I mean, Par Lindholm was at best an okay face-off guy and a penalty killer. Igor Rozaganov, I thought, was pretty much a bust. The guy that, in terms of Mikheyev's contribution, is closest to so far in terms of a positive contribution is the first year of Nikita Zaitsev, because Mikheyev has been, really speedy, really smart. He's big, but he's not overly tough. He makes good decisions. He works. And, I'm sure Babcock loves what he sees, and Babcock was instrumental in attracting him over to North America. And by the way, Kyle Dubas, according to some reports, is over in Russia right now, looking for players that he can sign for next year. And this is going to have to be something that they keep doing, that Russian KHL European pipeline, because they can get these players on entry-level contracts. And right now, those players, with the money that they're paying to the big guys, they're going to have to keep that pipeline going. So it's encouraging, but you have to also remember, and this is the only bad thing, if he has a really good year, then it's going to be expensive to re-sign Mikheyev next year. But we'll take that when it comes.
Yeah, we'll cross that bridge when we get to it. Nicholas Shore with his first of the season, Mikheyev number 2, Kerfoot his second of the season as well. Hockey Muzz with a goal from Timashov and Trevor Moore with an empty netter. T. Moore quietly getting it done. 3 goals already this season. John Tavares, the assist on that one. Empty netter, who cares? Any other thoughts on this game as to how you think what they accomplished in Detroit can be parlayed and duplicated with the higher tier players when they move on to the next game?
Well, let me tackle the minor negatives first.
Of course.
One, they again for the 5th time in 6 games they gave up the early goal. This I think it was like a little over 3 minutes into the first period when Jakob de la Rose scored to put Detroit in the lead. They can't not keep digging a hole. They did this last season. They're over reliant on their talent, and they have to to use Babcock's verbiage, they have to start on time, and they really haven't done that. They come out of the locker room in the first period like they've taken downers. They don't seem enthused coming out of the locker room, and then only when the game really gets going do they start showing their talent. So that's a concern. The other one is they go up 3-1. They work hard to get the goal. I think it was Kerfoot who scored a rebound right in the crease. And then less than a minute later, Darren Helms scores to make it 3-2. It's like you have to take advantage of the fact that you've gotten this 2-goal lead, and now you just give it right back. And then Muzzin scores the goal a few minutes later, but you work hard for these goals and then you give it right back. And that's just not acceptable from a top echelon team.
How is that addressed?
I think it's just pounded into their skulls by Babcock. It's like, start on time, start on time, start on time. Eventually they'll get used to it. Eventually they'll heed that advice, or maybe they tune it out. But the problem is that we know that this team is extremely talented.
Mm-hmm.
We know during the regular season, a 1-goal lead is not something that they're intimidated by. But again, you have to practice good habits. And I know that Babcock earlier in the week talked about, practicing good habits now in preparation for the playoffs. And that's the whole thing. It's like you cannot keep making these mistakes over and over and over during the regular season and expect to, flick a switch or click your fingers, and then all of a sudden you're going to play a different way in the playoffs. The way to play better in the playoffs is to model that performance during the regular season.
Yeah, they got the 2 in the Motor City. Love that arena. If anyone's been to the Little Caesars hockey facility, I don't envy you because I've been in your shoes. It is a spectacular venue. I highly recommend that you check it out, not only to go see a Wings game, but go support the city of Detroit. It's one of the diamonds in the rough, certainly when you look back on what's going on with that community and how it's reemerging. So the Leafs out hit again, 21-14. Michael, imagine if the Leafs demonstrated skill night in and night out at the level they can and were physically dominant. Who could beat them?
It was funny because I thought the best defenseman on the ice last night was Jake Muzzin. Him and Anthony Mantha were battling physically back and forth. And Muzzin was probably their best defenseman against Tampa. He laid out a couple hits, one on Matthew Joseph that got a rise out of the crowd. And Pierre LeBrun last night said something I think that is clear. The Leafs should be working on re-signing and extending Jake Muzzin. I don't think if you look at the defensive situation, and again, you have to be proactive in these situations, and you look at 3 unrestricted free agents in Barrie, Muzzin, and Ceci. They have defensemen coming. We know Rasmus Sandin is probably going to be part of the starting 6 next year. We assume that Timothy Liljegren will be. I don't think they're going to be able to afford Tyson Barrie unless he takes a bit of a hometown discount, and he probably won't. He's going to probably get around $8 million a year, and they can't afford that. But the one guy that they can't afford would be Muzzin. Muzzin's making around $4 million this year. I think if you got him on a long-term extension at around 5 or 5.5, he would probably sign that. And I think that he is a key because he's big, he's experienced, he's won Stanley Cups. If you're going to take one of those 3 in terms of the odds of them re-signing and the guy that you want because of his unique skill set, Muzzin probably is the guy to target over Barrie and over Ceci, and Kyle Dubas should try to get to work on that. But the problem is if his agent doesn't want to talk contract extension until the offseason, there's nothing you can do.
And don't forget, he's from Woodstock. The Leafs Convo for Oakridge Ford continues.
Hi, it's Nathan Jenner. Fill your goodie bag at Oakridge Ford. Our October deals are smoking hot. For a limited time, your new Ford comes with a 55-inch 4K TV. But when they're gone, they're gone. Get the 2019 F-150 Lariat with leather and navigation for only $547 per month, plus HST on a 3-year lease with $0 down. Team Oakridge, where a reputation gets you here and the trust keeps you coming back. For full details, visit oakridgeford.com.
The team you can count on.
And thanks to Oakridge Ford for the sponsorship. Michael, Demetriou Timashov is a nice little story as we follow the stars on this team. There's a player emerging in his own right from Kirovograd, Ukraine, drafted in 2015, 5th round, 4th pick, 125th overall. Mm-hmm. And here he is in his first real opportunity to do something on the NHL stage. 3 assists through 3 games played. I like it.
Yeah, he's the poster child for the Leafs developmental model. I mean, highly skilled, drafted out of the queue, had 71 assists with the Quebec Ramparts the one year, and made an impression big time at the World Junior. I think it was 2016 when Nylander got hurt in the first game. He moved up to the top line with Alex Nylander and played really well. And I think he had 7 points in that World Junior. And if you look at his progression with the Marlies, I think it was 24 points in his first year, 34 in his second year, 49 last year, 35 assists. He really took on more of a leadership role in terms of scoring last year with the Marlies, with all the players that went up to the Leafs like Janssen and Kapanen. So he surprisingly made the team as a 4th liner. He's played well two-way, which that's an advantage for him over a guy like Jeremy Bracco or some of the other top forwards with the Marlies that are young, is that he has devoted himself to playing defensively, because I think he knew that he couldn't just get to the NHL based on his offense and his playmaking ability. So, and he's an inexpensive player, which gives him an advantage with their cap situation. And if he continues to perform, and remember, he's been in this rotation with Nick Shore along with Batan and Spezza. I mean, yesterday he was arguably the best Leafs player on the ice. He knocked Chalowski off of the puck and set up Shore for the opening goal, and then set up Muzzin for the other goal. He's a good playmaker, and if he continues to play like that on the 4th line, he's earned himself a job.
This is the Leafs Convo podcast for Oakridge Ford. We'll get to some of your cues in a moment. Demetriou Timashov has skill. He seems to be buying into the game plan set out by the head coach. Two-way guy, 3-zone player, all 200 feet of the ice. But when push comes to shove, will he be bounced around like a pinball?
I don't think so, in the sense that I think he gives Babcock what he is looking for. And that's it. Now, he is, like I said, the first 6 games of the year, they've rotated that group with Shore and Timashov have played 3 games. Patan and Spezza have played 3 games. Babcock indicated that around the 10-game mark, he's going to make a decision who is going to play regularly. And then he may mix in players who are playing well with the Marlies. A guy like Igor Korshkov, who's scored, I think, in every game that he's played down in the minors. And Babcock's affinity for size. If Korshkov continues to play like that in the AHL, he may get a look at some point during this season. And he's had KHL experience, so he's not exactly a neophyte. So the 3rd and 4th lines, with the return of Hyman fairly soon, there's going to be some changeover. There's going to be some remixing of lines. But Timashov has played well enough, and this is the concern here. He's played well enough to earn a spot in the lineup, and he's played well enough that it's probably impossible that he gets through waivers, because he has to clear waivers. So I don't think he's going anywhere, and I think he stays with the Leafs for the rest of the season.
The complexity of running a team, we get on Kyle Dubas when his players don't perform like he hopes they will. But the guy does a lot of good work on behalf of this wonderful organization that's trying to find its way towards a Stanley Cup. It'll only be a matter of time until we find out whether Kyle Dubas's approach and philosophy lead the team to the promised land, or get it right there and Will he modify his plan of attack to get the Leafs over the hump, or will someone else come in and do that? Obviously, Mike Babcock, his head coach, is in that position right now, basically on borrowed time, unless he can get this team to where it needs to go from wherever he can control things. Michael, we're going to get to a couple of OG and Convert comments, cues, and questions before we book off for Canadian Thanksgiving. We'll be back in a sec.
Hi, it's Nathan Jenner. Fill your goodie bag at Oakridge Ford. Our October deals are smoking hot. For a limited time, your new Ford comes with a 55-inch 4K TV. But when they're gone, they're gone. Get the 2019 F-150 Lariat with leather and navigation for only $547 per month, plus HST on a 3-year lease with $0 down. Team Oakridge, where a reputation gets you here and the trust keeps you coming back. For full details, visit oakridgeford.com.
The team you can count on.
All right, John King on Twitter, @BeliefBrew. Who do the Marlies have that can create more sandpaper for the Leafs roster?
At the beginning of training camp, the guy that I was focused on, I thought that had a really good shot at the fourth line was Mason Marchment, but he got hurt in the first preseason game. And he has been hurt every year, either in training camp or during the regular season. So his durability is now, I think, in big question. But I think, once he comes back, once he plays regularly with the Marlies, he has that ability to get underneath the skin of other teams that I think is necessary in a bottom six forward, that if he plays well, and he's played well the last couple of years with the Marlies, that he gets a look. And I mentioned Igor Korshkov before. He's not exactly Mr. Sandpaper, but he's big, and he will throw his body around at times.
Mm-hmm.
So I think Korshkov would be a possibility. I definitely think that Marchment would be a possibility. But other than that, there's not much down there that provides that sandpaper that the questioner is asking about.
Currently on the roster, Jake Muzzin, physical when he chooses to be, when he has to be. I think he could bring more of it, and I think in the playoffs, if this team wins a round or two and begins to skate like they're a bunch of 10-foot tall monsters on the ice, I think we're going to see even more physicality from him. Kasperi Kapanen's the type of player to bring himself to another level as an NHLer, being physical and being that wild man on the ice, not crossing the line a la Nazem Kadri or, doing anything ratty like a Matt Cook, but being physical in addition to having talent. I think that's the kind of player he should become, and I hope that he's trying to become, and is just going through a few growing pains right now. He did get an assist in Detroit. That's nice to see. Of course, we know that the idea on this team, the philosophy, is to develop skill, but we also know that skill's going to take you to a certain point, and then you're going to be left, waiting for good things to happen, because you have to make those good things happen, and you have to be physical. If you're going to go all the way, John Villella, do you think Spezza finishes the season as a Leaf?
Oh, that's a big question, because now the thing is, Spezza and Patan take the blame for, because they were scratched after playing two games in a row, and I thought played really good the previous game against St. Louis, but didn't play particularly well against Tampa. But they weren't the ones responsible for the loss. It was the top six and guys like Morgan Riley and Freddie Anderson. But now Babcock has the excuse to go with Shore and Timashov again because they played a good game against Detroit. So to answer your question, I'm questionable about it. If he continues to be sort of a role player and gets in there once every 4 or 5 games, I don't think that's what he signed up for. I could see, if that continues, him just retiring at the end of retiring before the end of the season. But I hope that's not the case, because I think he has something to. This is Babcock playing Babcock games.
Jason Spezza wasn't brought on this team to be the focal point. He wasn't brought on the team to become the GOAT or to have the blame laid at his feet. This is a parade for him. This is a ceremonial last kicking of the can. Let him chip in when he gets the opportunity. What's going on? The head games that he's playing with Spezza at his age and at his tenure, and what he was originally supposed to be doing on this team, makes no sense. If that's indeed the way it's playing out behind closed doors, publicly, that's what it appears to be. And if Spezza has to retire, embarrassingly so, or in disgrace because he couldn't make the head coach happy, that's a crappy way to go out, especially when he was thinking that, he can come on the Maple Leafs in his final season, most likely, and be a contributor to something special. The fact that he's taking blame for anything is beyond me. If you're going to blame anybody, you blame Austin Matthews, you blame John Tavares, you blame Mitch Marner. We can't blame William Nylander, but you can blame the other top guys. You don't blame these fourth liners who play every 3 nights, right? Finally, Mike, our Leafs Convo poll in the community section of the YouTube page, requested by Leafs Convert and OG GWH. When does Mike Babcock get the axe? We got roughly 100 votes. 32% said he's safe. 30% say after the season he'll be fired. 28% say by Christmas he is a goner. And 10% suggests that February will be the time that Mike Babcock's tenure as head coach with the Maple Leafs comes to an end.
Yeah, I would sign in for after the season, but that's all dependent on how the Leafs do in the playoffs. If they advance, then I think he stays. If they lose in the first round for the 4th straight year, then I think a change in direction is probably going to be next, unless they lose 20 games in a row or some traumatic long-term event. I just can't see Brendan Shanahan and Kyle Dubas axing Mike Babcock in season. It just wouldn't make sense.
0-4 Minnesota at Scotiabank Arena on Tuesday. What are you expecting? What happens? Like, seriously, what do you think is going to happen in this game?
I think a continuation of the effort that they showed against Detroit. This is a team that, has struggled under Bruce Boudreau. It's a team in transition. The Leafs have to step on their neck and kill them. And I mean early, because if you give them an opportunity, if they get some confidence, there's some talent on that team, then they can make things difficult. We know that the Leafs have had trouble with teams in the past that have been lower echelon and not squashing them. So they need to do they don't need to do what they did against Detroit and let Detroit score the first goal. Score the first goal against Minnesota, step on their neck, and kill them.
OGs, converts, happy Canadian Thanksgiving. We give thanks every day that you guys are here to support us. Michael, you honorary Canadian, you can have turkey at our house any day you'd like. Have a good one, my friend.
Happy Thanksgiving.